4 cannons, 24 men, and German aviation that bombed emptiness for 3 days. June 22, 1944, Belarus, 7 kilometers from Vitebsk. German reconnaissance reported. Soviet battery destroyed. Pilots swore they hit the position with a direct strike. Aerial photographs show craters, many craters. But the next morning, this destroyed battery opened fire again, as if from underground. German columns burned on the road. Tanks stopped before reaching even 500 meters. In 1 week, 34 vehicles, 8 tanks, 200 enemy soldiers. The battery fired every day, and every day remained invisible. How was this possible? The Germans searched for it for 3 days. Infantry combed through every ravine. Aviation pounded the presumed positions. Artillery struck at all suspicious points. Nothing. The battery was there, right under the Germans' noses, at a distance from which the guns could fire almost point blank. But seeing it was impossible. To understand how one captain deceived an entire army, we need to go back 3 weeks to the artillery battery that had just taken position near Vitebsk. To a man who looked at war differently from others. His name was Grigory Alexeyevich Shchukin, 31 years old, captain, battery commander of 76mm Divisional ZIS-3 guns as part of the 238th Artillery Regiment. Born in 1913 in Tambov to a railway worker's family, father a locomotive engineer, mother a ticket clerk at the station. Eldest of 3 children, 2 younger sisters, Anna and Maria. Tambov always smelled of coal. The locomotive depot smoked day and night. From childhood, Grigory knew that if you stood on the hill above the depot and closed your eyes, you could tell by sound which train was departing. Freight, heavy, straining. Passenger, light, almost cheerful. The locomotive sighs, picks up speed, and the sound changes. Father used to say, "A machine is like a person. It has moods. You must listen to it. Then it won't let you down." Grigory learned to listen. After school, artillery school in Leningrad, 1931 to 33. He wanted aviation, but his eyesight failed him. -1.5 in the left eye. Artillery, his second choice, turned out to be the best. At school, Shchukin was not the best marksman, nor the fastest in trajectory calculations, but he was the most meticulous. The tactics instructor, Major Kravtsov, once told him, "Shchukin, do you know what your problem is?" "No, sir, Comrade Major." "You think too much. An artilleryman must calculate quickly, but you think about where the shell will fly, what it will encounter there, whom it will kill. This slows you down." Grigory remained silent, but he knew the major was right. He really did think a lot, perhaps too much. When other cadets memorized tables by heart, Shchukin tried to understand why these particular numbers, why the shell flew along this trajectory and not another. What would happen if the angle changed by half a degree? After school, service in the Belarusian military district, ordinary artillery battery, exercises, firing practice, daily life. In 39, he married Anna Petrovna, a teacher from Minsk. In 41, daughter Katya was born. June 22, 1941. Grigory Shchukin was a lieutenant commanding a platoon. The battery stood near Grodno. First battle, June 25th. German tanks came in a broad wave. 8 vehicles, light Panzer IIs and Panzer IIIs. The battery opened fire from 800 meters. Shchukin remembered this battle by the second. First shot, miss. Second hit the track. Tank stopped. Third, direct hit to the side. The German caught fire. Fourth. The fourth shell wasn't needed. The Germans turned around and left. The battery remained in position. Battery commander Captain Drozdov approached Shchukin, clapped him on the shoulder. "Well done, Lieutenant. Your crew did well." Grigory nodded, but inside was a strange feeling. Not joy at victory, but surprise. They left, he thought. 8 tanks against 4 guns. We knocked out 1. They could have crushed us, but they left. Why? That evening, he asked Drozdov, "Comrade Captain, may I ask a question?" "Go ahead." "Why did the Germans retreat? They outnumbered us." Drozdov smirked. "Shchukin, are you serious? They left because we hit them. We knocked out 1 tank. They had 7 left. So what? They could have destroyed us. Tanks against guns in open terrain." Drozdov interrupted. "Lieutenant, remember this. The German is a coward. Gets punched in the face, immediately runs. No need to philosophize here." But Shchukin couldn't stop thinking. The Germans weren't cowards. He understood that quickly. 3 days later, the battery was encircled. Drozdov was killed. Of 40 men, 23 got out. Shchukin commanded the withdrawal. Then came Smolensk, then Moscow, then Stalingrad. Shchukin rose to captain, received his own battery. He learned to fight not by the book, but for real. He learned the main thing. An artilleryman must think. Not just shoot where told, but think. Where to position, when to fire, how to camouflage. Think for the command. Think for the German. Think even for the shell flying toward its target. In Stalingrad, his battery held position for 2 days. Germans came in waves. The battery lost 2 guns, but held the position. For this, the Order of the Red Banner. At Kursk, a second order. The battery repelled 3 attacks, destroyed 5 tanks. But Grigory didn't like remembering Kursk. His friend died there. Senior Lieutenant Pavel Morozov, commander of the neighboring battery. They had studied together at school, drank together to victory after Stalingrad. Morozov died July 12, 43, from shrapnel to the neck. Died quickly, didn't even manage to say a word. After that, something changed. Shchukin became even more cautious, even more thoughtful. He checked every position 3 times, calculated every firing sector to the meter. The soldiers respected him but were somewhat afraid. Shchukin was demanding, didn't yell, didn't curse, but demanded strictly. If a gun was poorly camouflaged, he made them redo it. If the rangefinder made an error in calculations, they analyzed the mistake for an hour. The battery sergeant major, 40-year-old Stepan Ivanovich Belov, once said, "Comrade Captain, go easier on the men. They're trying." Shchukin looked at him. "Belov, how long have you been fighting this war?" "3rd year, Comrade Captain." "And how many batteries have you been through?" "3, Comrade Captain." "Why 3? Belov was silent, then quietly, "The first 2 were destroyed." "Exactly, and my battery has been fighting since 41. Personnel changes, men come and go, but the battery lives. Know why?" "Why, Comrade Captain?" "Because I don't let them relax. One mistake and everyone's dead. I'd rather be a strict captain than a dead hero." Belov nodded and didn't argue after that. Shchukin had a habit. Every evening, if the situation allowed, he wrote a letter home to his wife and daughter in Minsk. Though Minsk was under the Germans. He folded the letters into his map case, thinking, "When we liberate it, I'll give them all at once. Let them read how I lived these years." In the map case lay a photograph, Anna with little Katya, a snapshot from 1940. Katya in a white dress, Anna smiling. Grigory looked at this photograph every day, sometimes several times. Once the gunner, Junior Sergeant Kolya Grachev, saw the captain looking at the photo and asked, "Comrade Captain, Is this your family? Mine, Grachev. How old is the girl? Should be 4 now, if she's alive. Grachev fell silent. What could you say? Shechukin put away the photograph. Do you have anyone at home? Mother, comrade captain, in Voronezh. No letters since last year. There will be. Voronezh was liberated. I know, comrade captain. Still no letters. Write yourself. Maybe your letters got lost, not hers. Grachev nodded and left, and Shechukin sat down and wrote a letter to Anna. Number 123. Anushka, today I saw apple trees blooming. Remember, you and I in 39 went to the garden near Minsk? You said the smell of apple blossoms is the most spring-like smell in the world. I didn't understand then, but today I understood. It smells of home, smells of peace, smells of that time when there was no war. He folded the letter, put it in the map case with the others. In May 1944, the battery was transferred to Belarus. A major operation was being prepared, the liberation of Vitebsk. The Germans had held the city for 3 years, fortifications strong, artillery dense. Shechukin's battery joined the strike group, 4 ZIS-3 guns, experienced battle-tested crews, 24 men. May 15th, the brigade commander arrived, Colonel Makarov. He gathered the commanders, explained the task. Comrade officers, in a month we begin Operation Bagration. Goal, liberation of Belarus. Your battery will cover the flank of the advance. You'll take position here. He pointed to a spot on the map 7 kilometers from Vitebsk. The road goes from the city westward. The Germans will retreat along it or bring up reserves. Your task is to cut off this road with fire. Hold the position for at least a week, possibly longer. Shechukin looked at the map. Open terrain, small elevation. Forest a kilometer away. Road passes 500 meters from the proposed position. Comrade Colonel, a question. I'm listening, Captain. Position on an elevation, good view, but will be visible. German aviation will hit us within an hour. Makarov smirked. Captain Shechukin, they say you're the most cautious commander in the regiment. Camouflage yourselves, you know how. Yes, sir, Comrade Colonel, but what? Distance 500 meters to the road. That's direct line of sight. As soon as we open fire, they'll spot us, and there's nowhere to retreat. Nearest cover is the forest, a kilometer away. By the time we get there, they'll shoot us to pieces. Makarov grew cold. Captain, are you saying you cannot complete the task? No, sir, Comrade Colonel. We will complete it. I just want to understand how long we need to hold the position. An hour, a day, a week. A week minimum. Then our units will arrive and relieve you. Understood, Comrade Colonel. Shechukin left headquarters and lit a cigarette. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from anger. He knew this tactic. Place a battery in an open position, give the task of covering the advance, then count the losses. Usually, a battery in such a position lives a day, 2 at most. Then the Germans find it, determine coordinates, and cover it with artillery or aviation. Shechukin knew this. Makarov knew this. Everyone knew this. But an order is an order. Sergeant Major Belov approached from behind. Comrade Captain, what did they say? They said hold for a week. A week in an open position? Yes. Belov cursed quietly but heartily. Have they decided to write us off? Belov, are you a party member? Yes, sir. Then don't argue. We'll complete the task. Yes, sir, Comrade Captain. Belov left, and Stukin remained standing, looking east. There, beyond the forest, the spires of Vitebsk churches were visible. A week, he thought. 7 days, 168 hours. How to survive them? He didn't know yet, but he was already thinking. June 1st, 1944, Stukin's battery took position. The elevation turned out even worse than he thought. Not a hill, but rather a gentle slope. Height above the road about 30 meters. View excellent. Visibility 5 kilometers in all directions, but they were also perfectly visible. Forest a kilometer to the north, dense, pine. You could hide there, but from the forest to the road was 1.5 kilometers. For the ZIS-3, a bit far. Accuracy drops. Stukin stood at the top of the slope looking at the road. German trucks were moving along it, slowly, with stops, apparently carrying something to Vitebsk. Sergeant Major Belov beside him. "Comrade Captain, where should we place the guns?" Stukin was silent, thinking. Standard position, behind the crest of the elevation, so the guns aren't visible from below. But then the firing angle is poor. Would have to raise the barrels too high. Could hide completely on the reverse slope, but then the road isn't visible at all. Firing blind isn't an option. Only option left. Place them on top, in the open. Camouflage with nets. Hope they won't notice. "We'll set up here," Stukin gestured. "Interval between guns 30 meters. Camouflage thoroughly. Nets, branches, turf, so it's not visible from above." "Yes, Comrade Captain." The soldiers began digging. Artillery crews worked quickly. For each gun, a pit nest. Shovels rang against stones. The earth here was hard, clayey. Stukin walked between the guns, checking firing angles, estimating distances. Junior Sergeant Grachev, gunner of the first gun, wiped his forehead. "Comrade Captain, where do we get camouflage nets?" "We only have 2. We'll ask the second battery. Belov, go get them." "Yes, Comrade Captain." By evening, the position was ready. 4 guns, dug in, camouflaged, nets with branches on top. From a distance, they looked like bushes. Stukin inspected the work, nodded. "Good. Tomorrow we'll do ranging." That night he didn't sleep, lay in the dugout, stared at the ceiling. One thought spun in his head. A week. How to hold for a week. Morning of June 2nd, they did ranging. 2 shots at the road, checked distance, accuracy. Everything in order. Now they could shoot with their eyes closed. Trajectory worked out. After ranging, Stukin called the officers and sergeants. They gathered at the first gun. "Comrade commanders, listen to the task. The Germans will move along this road. Vehicles, tanks, infantry. Our task is to destroy everything that moves. Fire in short bursts, 2 to 3 shells. Hit the target, go silent. No need to fire until the ammunition runs out." Lieutenant Sudakov, commander of the 2nd platoon, asked, "Comrade Captain, what if tanks come? They need to be finished off." "We'll finish them, but smartly. First shell into the running gear, tank stops. Second shell into the side, tank burns. That's it, move on to the next. No need to waste 3 shells on 1 tank." Sudakov nodded. Sergeant Major Belov asked, "Comrade Captain, what if they spot us? The Germans aren't blind, they'll hear where we're firing from." "They'll spot us." Stukin took a drag on his hand-rolled cigarette. "Question is, when? Maybe in an hour, maybe in a day. Our task is to hold out as long as possible." "And how will we do that?" "We'll be cunning." "How?" Stukin didn't answer immediately, looked at the road, then at the sky. Clear, cloudless. German reconnaissance works well. Aviation flies every day. As soon as we open fire, they'll come, start searching. If they find us, it's over. So what do we do? We'll think. For now, work. Check the guns, distribute ammunition, stock up water, deepen the trenches. The soldiers dispersed. Only Belov remained. Comrade Captain, may I speak frankly? Speak. We won't hold out here long. You understand that yourself. I understand. Then why put on a show? Let's be honest with the men. We were ordered to die, so we'll die. Shchukin looked at the sergeant major, looked hard. Belov, how old are you? 42, Comrade Captain. Did you have a family? Wife was killed by the Germans in 41. Son's at the front, tank driver. Want to see him again? I do, Comrade Captain. Well, I want to see my daughter and wife, so I'm not planning to die. Not me, not my men. We'll complete the order, but alive.
Understood? Belov was silent. Then,
Understood, Comrade Captain. June 3rd, 6 o'clock in the morning. A German column moved along the road. 5 trucks and an armored personnel carrier. Shchukin gave the command. First and second guns, prepare. Crews took positions. Gunners pressed against the sights. Distance 520 meters. Lead vehicle. Fire. 2 bangs. 2 shells flew into the sky. A second later, explosions on the road. The lead truck burst into flames. The second stopped, unable to brake in time, crashed into the first. The armored personnel carrier turned, trying to escape. Third gun, target the armored personnel carrier. Fire! Another shot. The armored personnel carrier stopped, smoking. Cease fire! Everyone take cover! Soldiers fell into the trenches. Shchukin looked through binoculars. On the road, 3 vehicles burned. Germans jumped out of the surviving trucks, hid in the ditch. Someone was shooting toward the high ground with rifles. Useless. 500 meters they won't reach. A minute later, the Germans ran back toward Vitebsk, abandoning the column. Senior Sergeant Belov was smiling. Got them good, Comrade Captain. Just like in the textbook. Shchukin wasn't smiling. They've spotted us. In half an hour they'll come flying. But we're camouflaged. That won't help. The Germans will fire by sector. They'll blanket the entire high ground. And sure enough, 25 minutes later, dots appeared in the sky. Aircraft, 2 Junkers Ju-87s. Everyone to the trenches, quickly! The soldiers rushed to the dugouts. Shchukin was the last to dive into the narrow trench dug specifically for such occasions. The Junkers went into a dive. The sirens wailed. Nasty, ear-piercing. The first bomb fell about 50 meters away. The earth shuddered. Clumps of clay showered into the trench. The second one closer, about 30 meters. The third right nearby. The blast wave struck his back. Shchukin squeezed his eyes shut, pressed himself into the earth. Then silence, only ringing in his ears. He climbed out of the trench, looked around. Craters, many craters. The earth was torn up. One gun was half buried in clay, but intact. The rest were also intact. The men, too. One shell-shocked man was lying there holding his head. The rest were alive. Belov, check the personnel. Any wounded? Yes, Comrade Captain. Private Kuznetsov is shell-shocked. Send him to the medical station. Check the gun quickly. While they were checking the gun, Shchukin watched the road. The Germans were already hauling away their equipment. Tractors were dragging the knocked-out vehicles. Never mind, he thought. We'll meet again. That day, the battery didn't fire again. Shchukin didn't want to reveal their position unnecessarily. The Germans now knew there was artillery here. They'd be watching. In the evening, he gathered the commanders. Today they bombed at random. We were lucky. No one was killed. Tomorrow will be less lucky. We need to change something. Lieutenant Sudakov asked, maybe change position? Move into the forest? No, from the forest we won't reach the road. We need to stay here. Then how? Shchukin was silent. He himself didn't know. On the 4th of June, a German convoy was moving along the road. 8 vehicles, 2 tanks, Panzer IVs. Shchukin gave the command to fire. They knocked out 3 vehicles and 1 tank. The second tank turned around, began firing from its gun at the high ground. Shells were exploding nearby. One hit directly in the trench of the first gun. The crew. 3 men died instantly. Gunner Grachev, loader Petrov, ammunition carrier Lukin. Shchukin saw them get hit. One moment, they were alive, working at the gun. The next moment, only a crater and scraps. He felt nothing. Not in battle. Feelings would come later, at night. Now only cold fury. Second gun, armor piercing at the tank. Fire! 2 shots. The first missed. The second hit the side. The tank began smoking. The crew jumped out. The tank stopped. Cease fire! Everyone take cover! 15 minutes later, aircraft arrived, now 4 of them. They bombed heavily. Craters lay down like a carpet, but again missed the guns. After the raid, Shchukin walked around the position, looked at the crater where the first gun had been. The gun can be restored. The men cannot. Senior Sergeant Belov approached. Comrade Captain, 3 have already died. This is only the 2nd day. I know, Belov. If it continues like this, by the end of the week, no one will be left. No one will be left. And what do we do? Shchukin didn't answer, just walked to his dugout. At night, he sat on the edge of the trench, smoked, looked at the stars. In his map case lay 3 death medallions. Grachev, Petrov, Lukin. Grachev was 20 years old, from Voronezh. His mother was alone. His father had died in the Civil War. Kolya dreamed of becoming a teacher after the war. He told Shchukin, I'll tell children about the war so they know what it cost us. Now he won't tell them. Petrov was 35, from Kursk, wife and 3 children. Before the war, he worked as a tractor driver. He said, I'll return, buy my own tractor, plow the fields. I've had enough of hauling shells. He won't return. Lukin was 18, drafted in March. Didn't really have time to fight, just a boy. Shchukin remembered how Lukin first came under fire, shaking all over. Then he got used to it, even started joking. And now, just earth and bones. Shchukin threw away the cigarette butt, clenched his fists. This can't go on, he thought. Can't just sit and wait for them to kill us all. There must be a way. There must be. But what? On the 5th of June, the Germans changed tactics. Now small groups moved along the road, 2 or 3 vehicles, quickly, with intervals. Shchukin understood. They were being cautious, afraid of coming under fire, moving in small groups so losses would be smaller. The battery fired at each group, knocked out 1 or 2 vehicles, but this didn't stop the Germans. They kept moving. Aviation bombed every day, twice a day, morning and evening. On the 6th of June, 2 more died from shell fragments. Loader of the second gun, Semyonov, and signalman Korodkov. Semyonov was 23 years old, Korodkov 19. Now, out of 24 men, 19 remained. In 4 days, 5 dead. Belov calculated that if it continued like this, by the 10th of June, there would be about 10 men left. By the 15th, no one. Shchukin was silent. He knew Belov was right. On the evening of the 6th of June, he lay in the dugout, looked at a photograph of his wife and daughter. Anna was smiling. Katya, small, serious. "Forgive me," he thought. "Looks like I won't see you."
Didn't work out. He closed his eyes and suddenly saw, not with his eyes, but with his mind, a picture, clear, as if someone had drawn it before him. German aviation bombing. Bombs falling, but all missing, because they're aiming at the wrong thing. The guns aren't visible, not visible at all. They're underground. Shchukin sat up. His heart beat faster. Underground. He remembered Tambov, childhood. His father told stories about the war, the First World War. Trenches, dugouts, bunkers. "The Germans sat in trenches," his father said. "We couldn't drive them out of the trenches, and they couldn't drive us out either. So we sat opposite each other, shot at each other until they gave the order to advance." Trenches, dugouts. What if? Shchukin jumped up, ran out of the dugout. Night, darkness, stars. Somewhere in the distance, artillery was booming. He approached the first gun, or rather, the crater where the first gun used to be. The gun had been restored, dug out. Now it stood a bit to the side. Shchukin looked at the crater. Depth about 2 meters, diameter about 4 meters. Enough, he thought. More than enough. He imagined. The gun in a pit, deep so only the barrel is visible, everything else underground. On top, camouflage netting with real turf, with grass. An airplane flies, looks down, sees a field, grass, nothing more. And the gun is there, firing and hiding again. A ghost, thought Shchukin. A phantom battery. His hands trembled, not from fear, from excitement. This could work. This must work. He returned to the dugout, sat down, took out a sheet of paper, began drawing. The Zis-3 gun. Height from the ground to the shield about 1 meter. If you bury the gun up to the shield, only the barrel remains. About 40 centimeters above ground. 40 centimeters. In the grass, you won't see them. But how to bury it? Digging a pit 2 meters deep, 5 meters wide by hand. That's 3 days' work, and there's no time, Shchukin thought. Then grinned. Why dig? We already have ready-made pits. Craters. The Germans made them themselves. They bombed for 4 days. There are about 20 craters of various sizes on the high ground. Some are just right for a gun. Just need to widen, deepen, put the gun there, cover it with earth up to the shield. And that's it. Shchukin continued drawing. Camouflage netting. The usual kind won't work. Need a different one. With real earth, with turf, so from above it looks like a piece of field. Can be made from improvised materials. Poles, wire, netting, turf on top. Cut large pieces of earth with grass, lay them on the netting. It'll be natural camouflage. The airplane will see just earth. Shchukin drew until dawn. When the first rays of sun penetrated the dugout, the drawing was ready. He went outside. Dawn, red sky, fog over the field. Senior Sergeant Belov was already awake, checking the gun. Belov, Comrade Captain, gather everyone now.
Everyone, Comrade Captain? Everyone, quickly. In 5 minutes, the battery assembled. 19 men, exhausted, dirty, tired. Shchukin looked at them. His men, his soldiers. Comrade soldiers, he began. In 4 days, we've lost 5 good soldiers, good men. If nothing changes, we'll lose everyone. I don't want that. And you don't want that. So we'll do what the Germans don't expect. He unrolled the drawing. We'll hide. Bury ourselves so no one will see us, neither from the ground nor from the air.
and we'll shoot like ghosts." The soldiers were silent, looked at the drawing, didn't understand. Lieutenant Sudakov asked, "Comrade Captain, you want to bury the gun?" "Yes." "But how will we shoot?" "The barrels will remain above, everything else underground." "But that's madness." Shchukin grinned. "Maybe, but we have no choice. Either we try or we die." Belov scratched his head. "And if it doesn't work, then we die."
But at least we'll try. Any questions? There were no questions, only distrust in their eyes. "We start now," said Shchukin. "We have a day, maybe two. Not much time. We work around the clock, divide into shifts. Belov, divide the men into two groups. The first digs, the second rests, then they switch." "Yes, Comrade Captain." "Sudakov, you're responsible for the camouflage netting. Need poles, wire, turf, everything you can find." "Yes, Comrade Captain." "The rest of you, dig. Widen the craters, deepen them. We'll make the first pit for the first gun. When we finish, the rest." The men dispersed. Shovels rang out. Shchukin stood at the edge of the crater, watched the soldiers dig the earth. "It'll work," he thought. "It must work, because we have no other chance." The 7th of June, 8 o'clock in the morning. Shovels rang against stone. The earth here turned out to be not as simple as Shchukin thought. On top, half a meter of clay, then sand with stones. Hard to dig. 12 men were widening and deepening the first crater. They worked in 3 shifts of 4 men each. The rest prepared the camouflage structures. Shchukin stood nearby, monitored the work, sometimes took a shovel, dug himself, showed how it should be done. Senior Sergeant Belov climbed out of the pit, wiped sweat. "Comrade Captain, depth is already 2 meters. Dig further." Shchukin descended into the crater, looked around. Diameter about 5 meters, depth a bit more than 2 meters. The bottom was uneven, but that didn't matter. "Enough depth," he said. "Now level the bottom. The gun must stand steady." "Yes, Comrade Captain." Shchukin climbed out, called Lieutenant Sudakov. "How about the poles?" "Found them, Comrade Captain. Gathered 20 in the forest, about 3 meters long each." "Show me." Sudakov led him to the forest edge. There lay poles, thin pine trunks, cleared of branches. Shchukin looked, nodded. "Good. Wire?" "Yes, Comrade Captain." "About 50 meters. Not enough. Need more. Where else can we get it?" Sudakov thought. "We can unwind telephone cable. There's some lying on the German road." "Go, take 2 men. Just be careful. Don't reveal yourselves." "Yes, Comrade Captain." Sudakov left. Shchukin returned to the crater. Belov climbed out again. "Comrade Captain, leveled the bottom. Now what?" "Now we drag the gun." The first gun stood 30 meters away. Zis-3, a 1.5 tons. Hard to drag by hand, but possible. 8 men grabbed the trails, wheels, shield, pulled. The gun moved slowly, with a creak, but it moved. 10 meters, 20, 30. They rolled it to the edge of the crater. "Stop," commanded Shchukin. "Now we lower it." This was harder. The gun had to be lowered into a pit 2 meters deep, carefully so as not to damage it. Belov commanded. "Hold it. Don't let go. On my command, lower. 1, 2, 3. The gun went down. First slowly, then faster. The wheels slid into the pit. The trails hit the bottom. The gun tilted.
"Hold it. Level it! The soldiers jumped into the pit, straightened the gun, set it level. Shchukin descended, inspected. The gun stood at the bottom of the crater. The shield was at ground level, slightly higher. The barrel stuck up about 40 centimeters. Perfect. Belov, cover the shield with earth halfway. Leave only what's needed for work. Yes, Comrade Captain. The soldiers began filling in. Earth poured onto the gun shield. Gradually, everything disappeared. Only the barrel and the upper part of the shield remained. Shchukin climbed out of the pit, stepped back 20 meters, looked. From the side, you could see a pit with a gun barrel sticking out. Not very much like grass yet, but this was just the beginning. Sudakov, where are the poles? Here, Comrade Captain. Bring them here. We'll make a frame. Sudakov and 2 soldiers dragged the poles. Shchukin showed how to lay them. They placed the poles across the pit, crisscross.
A lattice formed over the gun, height about 50 centimeters above the barrel. Twist them with wire, tight, so it holds. The soldiers twisted the poles with wire. The structure turned out sturdy. Then they stretched camouflage netting on top of the poles. The netting sagged, but held. Now the turf, said Shchukin. Cut pieces of earth with grass, large, the size of a shovel. Lay them on the netting. This took a long time. Cutting turf was painstaking work. You undercut with a shovel from below, separate a piece of earth with roots, carry it, lay it on the netting. 1 piece, a second, a 10th, a 20th. By noon, the entire netting over the gun was covered with turf. Earth, grass, in places flowers, yellow buttercups. Shchukin stepped back 100 meters, looked. From the side, just a piece of field, a small unevenness, grass slightly higher, the gun not visible. He returned, descended into the pit, looked up. Light penetrated through the turf. Can work. Cramped, but possible. First gun crew, take positions.
4 men descended into the pit. The gunner sat at the panoramic sight. The loader stood at the breech. The ammunition carriers took positions. Aim at the road. The gunner turned the hand wheels. The barrel swung, pointed at the road. Ready? Simulated shot. Prepare. Fire. The gunner made a motion as if pulling the cord. The gun froze. Shchukin watched. Everything works. The crew fits. The gun aims. Can fire. He climbed out of the pit. Belov stood nearby. Comrade Captain, looks like it works. Looks like it. Shchukin took a drag on his hand-rolled cigarette. But this is only 1 gun. Need to make 3 more like this. Belov looked at the sun. Noon. By evening, we'll manage 1 more. Maybe 2. We'll manage all 4. We work around the clock. Comrade Captain, the men are tired. Everyone's tired. The Germans are tired too. But they don't stop. And we won't stop. Belov nodded. Left.
Shchukin remained standing, looked at the first camouflaged gun. 1 done, he thought. 3 more to go. By the evening of the 7th of June, 2 guns were ready. The second was buried faster. Skill had developed. They widened the crater in 5 hours, installed the gun in an hour, camouflage another 2 hours. 8 hours per gun. So by the morning of the 8th of June, all 4 would be ready. At night, they worked by the light of a bonfire. The bonfire was lit in a hollow so it wouldn't be visible from the road. The soldiers worked silently. Only shovels rang, and people breathed heavily. Shchukin didn't sleep, walked between the pits, checked, advised, helped. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Lieutenant Sudakov approached. Comrade Captain, the 3rd gun is ready. Checked it. The crew took position. Aiming works.
Camouflage laid the turf, not visible from the side. Good. Continue. The fourth.
Finish it.
Yes, comrade captain. By 6 o'clock in the morning on the 8th of June, the last gun was ready. Shchukin's battery had turned into a ghost. 4 pits, 4 guns buried up to the shield, 4 barrels sticking out of the ground 40 centimeters. On top, turf, grass, earth. From a distance of 100 meters, just a field. Shchukin walked around the position, inspected each gun, checked the camouflage, then stepped back 300 meters, looked through binoculars. Nothing, just high ground. Grass, craters from bombings, but there were many of them. They were everywhere, but the guns weren't visible. He returned, gathered everyone. 19 men, dirty, tired, eyes red, hadn't slept for 2 days. "Comrade soldiers," said Shchukin, "work is finished. You worked well. Now rest. 3 hours of rest, then combat duty." The soldiers silently dispersed, fell into the dugouts, fell asleep without undressing. Shchukin also lay down but didn't sleep.
I thought today we would test it. The Germans would come. We would open fire. Then aviation would arrive and bomb. That's when we would find out whether this works or not. 8 o'clock in the morning, 8th of June. A German column was moving along the road, 6 trucks. Shchukin stood at the first gun, looking through binoculars. Readiness number 1. Crews take positions. The soldiers jumped into the pits and took positions at the guns. Shchukin descended into the pit of the first gun. Cramped. 4 men in a pit 2 meters deep, but there was enough room. The gunner, Senior Sergeant Fedorov, looked through the panoramic sight. "I see the target, comrade captain. Distance 530 meters. Aim at the lead vehicle." "Yes, sir." Shchukin looked out of the pit. The column was slowly crawling along the road. First and second guns. Fire. 2 bangs. The earth shuddered. Shchukin was enveloped in gunpowder smoke. Explosions on the road. The lead truck burst into flames. The second one stopped. Third gun. Target the second vehicle. Fire. Another shot. The second vehicle caught fire. Cease fire. Everyone take cover. Shchukin did not climb out of the pit. He simply crouched down. The soldiers sat on the bottom. Above their heads was a layer of earth with turf a meter thick. Chaos on the road. Germans were jumping out of the vehicles. Someone was shooting toward the elevation. Useless. Within a minute, the column turned around. The surviving vehicles drove back. Shchukin looked out. "That's it. They've left. Get ready. They'll be here soon." And sure enough, 20 minutes later, dots appeared in the sky. 3 aircraft. Junkers. Shchukin commanded, "Everyone into the pits. No one stick their head out." He sat on the bottom of the first pit. Next to him was the crew, 4 men. Cramped, but there was room for everyone. Overhead were poles, netting, turf, a meter of earth. Would this be protection? They would find out now. A siren wailed. The first Junkers went into a dive. A rising whistle. Shchukin squeezed his eyes shut. An explosion. The earth struck from below. Shchukin was thrown up. He fell back down. His ears were ringing. A second explosion. Closer. Clumps of clay showered down from above through the turf. A third. A fourth. A fifth. The pit shook violently. Earth was falling. One soldier screamed, but the scream was drowned out by the next explosion. Shchukin lay on the bottom, covering his head with his hands, counting seconds. 10, 20, 30. Silence. He opened his eyes. Dark, dust, the smell of gunpowder and earth. "Are we alive?" he asked hoarsely. "Alive, comrade captain," Fedorov answered. Shchukin stood up.
His head was spinning. He climbed out of the pit and looked around. The elevation was pockmarked. New craters. Many new craters. One 5 meters from the first gun, another 10 from the second. But the guns were intact. The camouflage was slightly knocked off.
Somewhere the turf had crumbled, but overall, it held. "Belov, check the personnel." The sergeant major climbed out of the third pit. "Yes, Comrade Captain." A minute later, he reported. "Everyone is alive, Comrade Captain. One lightly shell-shocked, the rest are fine." Shichukin exhaled. Alive. Everyone alive. The camouflage works. He looked at the sky. The planes were leaving. They had dropped their bombs and flown away. And the battery was alive. Sergeant Major Belov approached, smiling broadly. "Comrade Captain, it worked. They can't see us." Shichukin nodded, but did not smile. "They can't see us yet, but they will search. Today we fired. They know we are here, somewhere here. They will comb through every meter. And what do? Do what we have been doing. Shoot, hide, wait." The 8th of June passed quietly. The Germans did not use the road anymore. Apparently, they were being cautious. Shichukin ordered the camouflage to be repaired. The soldiers cut new turf and replaced the damaged sections. By evening, the position once again looked like an untouched field. On the 9th of June, a German armored personnel carrier passed along the road. Just one. Reconnaissance. Shichukin decided not to shoot. Let it pass. No point in revealing ourselves for one vehicle. The armored personnel carrier drove past. Slowly. The Germans were looking for something. Shichukin lay in the pit of the first gun, looking through a gap in the turf, and saw a German soldier looking through binoculars directly at the elevation. "Look," Shichukin thought. "Look carefully. You won't see anything." The armored personnel carrier drove away. In the evening, Shichukin sat in the dugout, writing another letter to Anna. 127. "Anushka, I have devised a way to hide. We now live underground like moles. The Germans are looking for us but cannot find us. It's funny. We shoot every day. They know we are here but cannot find us. It's like a children's game of hide and seek. Only the stakes are not candy, but life." He folded the letter and put it in his map case. On the 10th of June, the Germans tried a new tactic. Infantry was moving along the road. About 40 men, no vehicles. Shichukin looked through binoculars. The Germans were advancing in an extended formation, surveying the terrain, searching. "Do we shoot?" Belov asked. "No, let them pass." The German infantry passed by, 300 meters from the elevation. They did not climb up, did not check. Shichukin exhaled. "We got lucky." But in the evening it became clear the Germans were not giving up. 3 aircraft appeared in the sky. Reconnaissance planes flew low in circles, photographing the terrain. Shichukin watched from the pit. A plane passed directly over the position, at an altitude of about 300 meters. "Take pictures," he thought. "Take pictures. The photographs will show a field, grass, craters. You won't see the guns." The planes flew away. On the 11th of June, Operation Bagration began. In the morning, artillery thundered all along the front. Soviet forces went on the offensive. Shichukin received orders to intensify fire and completely block the road. Do not let German reserves through to Vitebsk. During the day, a large column moved along the road. 12 vehicles, 3 tanks. "This is our chance," Shichukin said. "We hit them with all guns and destroy the column completely." The battery opened fire. All 4 guns fired simultaneously. Thunder, smoke, the earth trembled. Hell on the road. The first truck caught fire, the second exploded. A tank stopped, turned its turret, and began firing at the elevation. Shells exploded nearby. One hit 10 meters from the second gun. Shichukin was showered with earth. Continue fire on the tank, armor piercing. 2 shells went toward the tank. The first missed, the second hit. The tank began to smoke. Another shell. The tank burst into flames. Cease fire, take cover. The crews crouched in the pits. Overhead was the camouflage. On the road, 8 vehicles and 2 tanks were burning. The third tank drove away. The surviving trucks also turned around and left. Shichukin looked out and counted. 8 vehicles, 2 tanks. A good result. Belov, casualties? No casualties, Comrade Captain. Ammunition. We expended 30 shells, 180 remain. Enough. Rest. Half an hour later, aviation arrived. 6 aircraft bombed heavily, covering the entire elevation, but the battery sat in the pits and waited it out. Not a single casualty. After the raid, Shichukin went out and looked around. The elevation now resembled a lunar landscape. Craters upon craters, the earth plowed up, but the guns were intact. Belov approached. Comrade Captain, they have been bombing for 3 days now and everything misses. When do you think they will figure it out? Shichukin smirked. Never. They are looking for what is visible, and we are not visible. On the 12th of June, the Germans tried to break through along the road by force. A large column, 20 vehicles, 5 tanks, infantry on armored personnel carriers. Shichukin waited for them. Let them approach to 400 meters, hit them with all guns. First the tanks, then the vehicles. The column crawled along the road, slowly, cautiously. 450 meters, 420, 400. Fire! Thunder! 4 guns struck at once, 8 shells in the first 3 seconds. The lead tank caught fire, the second stopped, the third tried to turn around and took a shell in the side. The vehicles stopped. Germans were jumping out, running. Someone was shooting back. The battery continued to fire methodically, calmly, shell after shell. 5 minutes of battle, 70 shells. Result, 5 tanks knocked out, 14 vehicles burning. The rest drove away. Cease fire, take cover. Shichukin descended into the pit and sat on the bottom. The crew sat nearby. Fedorov was smiling.
Comrade Captain, we routed them.
Routed, Shichukin agreed. But this is not the end yet. Now they will come and hit us with double the force. And sure enough, 15 minutes later, 8 aircraft. They bombed for 20 minutes. Shichukin sat in the pit counting explosions. 41, 42, 43. Earth was falling from above. At some point it seemed the pit would collapse now, but it held. When the planes flew away, Shichukin climbed out. The elevation was unrecognizable. The craters had merged into a continuous landscape of destruction. The earth was mangled, smoking, but the 4 guns stood in place. The camouflage was partially destroyed, but the guns were intact. Belov reported. 1 lightly wounded, Comrade Captain, shrapnel in the shoulder. The rest are fine. Shichukin nodded. Repair the camouflage. In an hour we will resume fire. On the 13th of June, it became clear the Germans were losing control of the road. Columns went one after another, trying to break through, carrying ammunition, food, reinforcements. Shichukin's battery blocked the road. It shelled each column, knocked out vehicles, sowed chaos. During the day, the battery destroyed 10 vehicles, 3 tanks, about 100 enemy soldiers. They expended 90 shells. 90 remained. In the evening, Shchukin sat in the dugout calculating. 3 days of work with the new tactic. Casualties, 1 lightly wounded. Result: 34 vehicles, 8 tanks, about 200 enemy soldiers, and the Germans still had not found the position. Sergeant Major Belov came in. "Comrade Captain, permission to report." "Report." "The soldiers are asking when we will be relieved. The order was to hold for a week. The week ends on the 15th of June, and if they don't relieve us, we will hold longer." Belov was silent for a moment, then said, "Comrade Captain, I wanted to say, what you came up with is brilliant. We have not lost a single man in 3 days, and we could have lost everyone." Shchukin looked at him. "I am not a genius, Belov. I simply did not want to die and did not want my men to die. That is all. Still, thank you, Comrade Captain." Belov left. Shchukin took out a photograph, Anna, Katya, and looked at it for a long time. "Will I see you?" he thought. "Will I survive?" On the 14th of June, the Germans made a final attempt. They sent artillery, 3 guns, set up positions a kilometer from the elevation, and began methodically shelling. Shchukin understood. This is the end. Gun against gun, battery against battery. The Germans will fire until they hit us. He called Belov. "Belov, do you see the German battery?" "I see it, Comrade Captain. A kilometer, maybe a bit more." "Can we reach them?" "The ZIS-3 fires up to 8 kilometers, but we have not tried beyond a kilometer." "Let us try." First gun, aim at the German battery. Distance 1,100 meters. Maximum charge.
Fedorov looked at Shchukin. "Comrade Captain, that is very far. Accuracy will be poor." "I do not care about accuracy. The main thing is to hit the square." "Fire." Fedorov aimed and fired. The shell flew away. An explosion in the distance. Missed, about 50 meters short. Adjust farther. The second shot was closer. The third. The fourth. The fifth shot hit. An explosion right by the German gun. "Got it," Fedorov shouted. "All guns on the German battery. Fire!" 4 guns struck. Shells rained down on the German position. The Germans tried to respond. They fired once, twice, but then fell silent. 10 minutes later, the German battery was silent. 2 guns were burning. The third was being towed away by a tractor. Shchukin exhaled. "Cease fire." Belov approached, looking at the burning German guns. "Comrade Captain, we beat them. Artillery against artillery." "We beat them," Shchukin agreed. "But this is not the end. They will send more." There was no new German battery. Apparently, they decided not to risk it. On the 15th of June at noon, a liaison officer arrived at the position. "Captain Shchukin." "Yes. Order from the regimental commander. The battery is being withdrawn from the position. The mission is complete. Advancing units are already 5 kilometers from here." Shchukin did not understand immediately. "Withdrawn?" "Yes, Comrade Captain. Pack up and withdraw to our lines." The liaison officer left. Shchukin stood looking at the 4 pits, 4 guns buried in the earth. A week had passed. They had survived. Everyone had survived. Sergeant Major Belov approached. "Comrade Captain, may we rejoice?" Shchukin smiled. "For the first time in a week." "We may, Belov. We may." The soldiers began digging out the guns, pulling them from the pits, preparing them for evacuation. Shchukin watched them work. His 19 men. Alive. All alive. He thought of the first days, of the 5 who had died.
Grachev, Petrov, Lukin, Semyonov, Korotkov. If he had thought of this tactic earlier, perhaps they would be alive. But the past cannot be returned. What matters is that the rest survived. On the 16th of June, 1944, the battery left the position. 4 ZS-3 guns, dug up and loaded onto tractors, 19 men, tired but alive. Shchukin was the last to look back at the elevation. It was pockmarked with craters. The earth plowed up, but somewhere there, under a layer of turf and earth, 4 pits remained. Witnesses to how a captain and his men held the defense for a week against aviation and artillery and survived. The column moved east toward the advancing Soviet forces. 5 kilometers later, they were met by an advance detachment, tanks, infantry on armor. The detachment commander, a major with a weathered face, asked, "Are you from that position? From the elevation?" "We are," Shchukin answered. "And the Germans found you?" Shchukin smirked. "They did not find us." "How did they not find you?" You fired for a week. We fired, but they did not find us. We were underground. The major did not understand. He looked at the battery, at the exhausted soldiers, and shrugged. "All right, proceed. Well done for holding out." The column drove on. On the 17th of June, the battery arrived at the regimental assembly point. Other batteries were already there, preparing for the next stage of the offensive. Colonel Makarov, the regimental commander, summoned Shchukin. "Captain, report on the completion of the mission." Shchukin stood at attention. "Comrade Colonel, the battery completed the mission. The position was held from the 1st to the 15th of June. Destroyed, 34 enemy vehicles, 8 tanks, 3 artillery pieces. Personnel casualties, 1 lightly wounded." Makarov raised his head. "1 wounded in 2 weeks?" "Yes, Comrade Colonel. In the first 4 days, 5 were killed. In the following 10 days, 1 wounded." "How is this possible?" Intelligence reported the Germans bombed your position every day. They bombed, Comrade Colonel, but did not hit. Why? Shchukin told in detail about the buried guns, about the camouflage with turf, about how German aviation bombed for 3 days but could not find the battery. Makarov listened without interrupting. When Shchukin finished, the colonel leaned back in his chair. "Captain, do you understand that this is brilliant?" "No, Comrade Colonel, just a necessary measure. A brilliant necessary measure. I will report to the division commander. This experience must be disseminated." "Yes, Comrade Colonel." Shchukin left the headquarters. Belov was waiting outside. "What did the colonel say?" "He said they will report it higher up and implement it. So other batteries will do the same." "Perhaps." Belov smirked. "That would be good. Fewer of our men will die." Shchukin nodded, took out a hand-rolled cigarette, lit it, and looked west. There, beyond the forests, battles were raging. They were liberating Vitebsk, driving the Germans farther west. And here, in the rear, the battery rested, repaired the guns, and prepared for new battles. Shchukin thought that the war was not over yet. Ahead lay a long road to Berlin. Perhaps he would travel that road, perhaps not. But now, at this moment, he was alive. His men were alive, and that was the main thing. On the 18th of June, a commission arrived at the regiment's location. 3 officers, a colonel from Army headquarters, a major artillerist, a captain engineer. Colonel Makarov introduced them. "Comrade officers, this is Captain Shchukin, commander of the battery I reported about." The colonel from Army headquarters was tall, thin, with intelligent eyes. His name was Kornilov. "Captain Shchukin, we have come to examine your method. The command is interested. We need to understand whether this can be applied on a mass scale."
Yes, Comrade Colonel. Tell us in detail from the very beginning. How did the idea come about?
Shchukin told everything. About the first days at the position, about the losses, about the despair, about the night when he saw the solution. Colonel Kornilov listened, occasionally nodding. The major artillerist wrote in a notebook. When Shchukin finished, Kornilov asked, "What are the main advantages of the method?" Shchukin thought. First, invisibility from the air. German aviation cannot detect the position. They bomb blindly. Understood. Next. Secondly, protection from shrapnel. The gun crew is in a pit. Even if a bomb falls nearby, the shrapnel flies higher, does not reach the people. The major artillerist asked, "And the minuses? Are there disadvantages to the method?" Shchukin nodded. The main minus is time. You need a minimum of 8 hours per gun. Digging the pit, installing the gun, camouflaging it. That is a lot. A lot. But if the position is long-term, for a week or more, then it is worth it. For 8 hours of work, you get 7 days of safety. The captain engineer, a young man about 25 years old, asked, "And if the ground is hard, rocky, you cannot dig it out in 8 hours?" "Correct," Shchukin agreed. "The method works where the ground is soft, earth, clay, sand. On rocks, it will not work." Colonel Kornilov nodded. "Good. Now practice. Show how it looks." Shchukin led the commission to one of the guns. It stood on an open platform, not yet prepared for the next battle. "Here is a ZIS-3, a standard divisional gun. Height from the ground to the top of the shield is 1 meter 10 centimeters. If you bury the gun so that the shield is at ground level, only the barrel will remain above the surface, approximately 40 centimeters. The captain engineer crouched down, looked at the gun from bottom to top. "And you cover it from above with turf." "Yes, poles across the pit. On them a camouflage net. On the net, pieces of earth with grass. You get a natural landscape." "And where does the crew fit?" "In the pit." The diameter of the pit is 4 to 5 meters. Depth, 2 meters. There is enough space for 4. Cramped, but you can work. The major artillerist wrote everything down in a notebook, drew diagrams. Colonel Kornilov walked around the gun in a circle, was silent. Then, "Captain, why did no one think of this before?" Shchukin shrugged his shoulders. "I do not know, Comrade Colonel. Perhaps there was no need. Perhaps there was no time to think." "And did you have time?" "There was no time, but there was no choice either. Either think of something or die." Kornilov smirked. A good stimulus for creativity. He turned to the other officers. "Comrades, I believe the method needs to be implemented at least in areas where artillery is under constant threat from aviation. This will give a colossal reduction in losses." The major artillerist nodded. "I agree, Comrade Colonel. We need to compile instructions. Send them to the units. We will compile them. Captain Shchukin, will you help?" Shchukin straightened up. "I served the Soviet Union, Comrade Colonel." For 3 days, they worked on the instructions. Shchukin dictated, the captain engineer wrote, the major artillerist drew diagrams. The result was a document of 10 pages. Title: Instructions for Equipping Camouflaged Artillery Positions to Counter Enemy Air Reconnaissance and Bombing. The instructions contained everything: requirements for the ground, pit sizes for different types of guns, diagrams of camouflage structures, time for equipping the position, recommendations for gun placement, safety measures. Colonel Kornilov read it, approved it. "Good work, comrades. I will send it to front headquarters. Let them distribute it. Send it out." He looked at Shchukin. "Captain, we will write you up for an award. Order of the Patriotic War First Class. You have earned it." Shchukin wanted to say, "It is not necessary. I was just doing my job." But he remained silent. You do not argue with colonels. On the 23rd of June, The battery was thrown into battle again. The offensive was going along the entire front. The Germans were retreating, but retreating with battles. They clung to every village, to every height. Shuchukin's battery received the task of supporting the advance of a rifle regiment, suppressing German firing points, hitting fortifications. They took up position at the edge of a forest. There was no time to bury the guns. The battle went on continuously. Shuchukin cursed through his teeth. Standard position, open, visible. But an order is an order. They fired all day, suppressed 3 machine gun points, destroyed 2 pillboxes, helped the infantry take a village. By evening, German aviation arrived, 2 Henschels, ground attack aircraft. Shuchukin managed to command. Everyone take cover. The planes passed low, fired from machine guns, bombed. 1 bomb fell 5 meters from the second gun. The blast wave overturned the gun. 3 were wounded by shrapnel. Shuchukin jumped out of cover, rushed to the wounded. 1. Serious, shrapnel in the stomach. 2. Lighter, arms, legs. Medics carried away the wounded. Senior Sergeant Belov approached. "Comrade Captain, if we had been dug in..." "I know," Shuchukin cut him off. "I know, Belov, but there was no time. We need to find time. Tell that to the command." Belov fell silent. On the 25th of June, Colonel Kornilov came to the battery position. "Captain Shuchukin, news. The instructions have been approved, sent to all artillery units of the front. Plus, they were also sent to neighboring fronts." Shuchukin nodded. "Understood, Comrade Colonel. And also your order has been signed. Order of the Patriotic War, First Class. Congratulations. I served the Soviet Union." Kornilov looked around the position, saw the overturned gun, the wounded being loaded into a vehicle. "What happened?" "Aviation, Comrade Colonel. They hit us yesterday." "Why are the guns not dug in?" "There was no time."
The battle went on continuously. Kornilov frowned. "Understood, Captain. I will speak with the regimental commander. Batteries need to be given time to equip positions, otherwise what is the point of the instructions?" "Thank you, Comrade Colonel." Kornilov left, and the battery continued to fight the old way, in open positions, because there was no time for digging in. July 1944. Soviet forces liberated all of Belarus. The Germans rolled back into Poland. Shuchukin's battery traveled 500 kilometers from Vitebsk to Brest. They fought every day, lost men, received replacements, lost again. Of the 19 men who left that position near Vitebsk, 11 remained. The rest were wounded or killed. Shuchukin aged. He was 31 years old but looked 40. Gray hair at the temples, wrinkles around the eyes. His hands trembled in the mornings. The concussion made itself known. But he fought, commanded the battery, did his job.
In early August, an unfamiliar major from Army headquarters came to the position. Captain Shuchukin. "I am Major Sokolov, Combat Training Department. I came to see how the new instructions are being applied." Shuchukin smirked. "They are not being applied at all, Comrade Major. No time." "How is there no time? The offensive is going on. Every day a new position. We fire and move forward. Where is there time to dig pits for 8 hours?" The major frowned. "But other batteries are applying them. I have seen it. The day before yesterday I was at the 108th Battery. They stood in position for 4 days, managed to dig in. The Germans bombed them. Not a single casualty." Shuchukin nodded. "Good that they managed. We are not lucky with positions." "Understood." The major took out a notebook. "Captain, tell me, in your opinion, in what situations is the method most effective?" Shuchukin thought. "When the position is long-term, from 3 days or more, when there is a threat from aviation, when the ground allows digging. Those are the 3 conditions. And if the position is for 1 day, then it is not worth it. You will not have time to dig in. It will already be time to leave. The major wrote it down, thanked him, left. Shchukin remained standing, looking west. There beyond the forests, the war went on, long, hard. The end was still far off. September 1944. The regiment entered Poland. The battles became harder. The Germans snapped back, counterattacked, clung to every line. Shchukin's battery took up position on a height near the city of Deblin. Task: hold for a week, cover the crossing over the Vistula. Shchukin looked at the terrain. Height, good view. Ground, black earth, soft. There is time. 2 days before the start of active operations, he made a decision. We dig all 4 guns, bury ourselves according to the full program.
The soldiers grumbled. No one liked digging. But an order is an order. They worked for a day. They dug 4 pits, installed the guns, camouflaged them with turf. By the evening of the 2nd day, the position was ready. The 4 ghosts returned again. Shchukin inspected the work, nodded with satisfaction. Like near Vitebsk. Only faster, the soldiers had already gotten the hang of it. On the 3rd of September, the battles for the crossing began. The Germans tried to disrupt the offensive, bombed bridges, attacked bridgeheads. Columns of tanks went one after another. Shchukin's battery met them with fire. They fired from dug-in positions methodically, calmly. The Germans could not understand where they were firing from. They saw the flashes of shots, but did not see the guns. Aviation came every day, bombed the height, but the bombs fell wide. The guns were invisible. In a week, the battery destroyed 12 tanks, 23 vehicles, 4 artillery guns. Losses? 0.
0 killed, 0 wounded. Only fatigue and nerves. When the battery was relieved, Senior Sergeant Bielov said, "Comrade Captain, it works. Every time it works. We must always do it this way." Shchukin nodded. "We must, but it does not always work out." October, November, December. The war went on. The battery fought, Shchukin commanded. Where there was opportunity, they buried the guns. Where there was no time, they fought the old way. The statistics were eloquent. In dug-in positions 7 times in autumn, 3 lightly wounded, 0 killed. In open positions 14 times, 8 killed, 15 wounded. Shchukin kept records. In the map case where letters to Anna lay, there was now another list, a list of those who were killed, and next to it a note, open position or dug-in position. The numbers spoke for themselves. January 1945. Colonel Makarov came to the position. Now he commanded the regiment. "Captain Shchukin, congratulations. You have been promoted to the rank of major." Shchukin straightened up. "I served the Soviet Union, Comrade Colonel." "And more news. Your method has been included in the official artillery manual. Now it is not just instructions for the front. It is a document for the entire Red Army." Shchukin was silent, did not know what to say. Makarov continued. "You know, Major, I calculated. According to Army headquarters data, your method was used by 63 batteries over 6 months. Average savings in losses, 60%. That is, out of every 10 artillerymen who should have been killed, 6 survived." He paused. Then, 63 batteries times 20 men per battery. That makes 1,260 men. 60% of them is 756 lives. You saved 756 men, Major, not with your own hands, but with your head.
Shichukin stood silently, swallowing a lump in his throat. 756. That was more than he thought. Much more.
Makarov patted him on the shoulder. Fight on, Major. Victory is not far off. He left. Shukin sat on a crate of shells, took out a hand-rolled cigarette, lit it, thought about the numbers. 756. And that was only in 6 months. And how many more would there be by the end of the war? Maybe 1,000? Maybe more? He remembered those he could not save. Grachev, Petrov, Lukin, Semenov, Korotkov, and all the others who died in open positions. Forgive me, he thought. If only I had thought of it earlier. But the past cannot be returned. What matters is that others will survive. On the 9th of May, 1945, Major Grigory Alexeyevich Shukin met the day in Berlin. The battery stood on the outskirts of the city. The war was over. The guns were silent. Soldiers shouted, "Hurrah!" They embraced, cried, fired into the air. Shukin stood apart, looked at the destroyed city, thought about the path he had traveled from Vitebsk to Berlin. 4 years of war. 1,460 days. He survived. Of those who began the war with him in 41, almost no one survived. But he survived. Senior Sergeant Belov approached, held out a flask. "Major, to victory." Shukin took the flask, took a sip. The vodka burned his throat. "To victory, Belov." They stood silently. Then Belov said, "Major, I wanted to ask, do you remember that position near Vitebsk when we dug in for the first time?" "I remember. I thought then we would all die, honestly. I thought, that is it, the end. And you thought up this thing, and we survived." Shukin smirked. "Not I alone survived. We all survived together. But the idea was yours. The idea was mine, but everyone worked." Belov nodded, was silent. Then, "Thank you, Comrade Major, for not letting us die." He saluted, left. Shukin remained alone, took out the map case, opened it. Letters to Anna. 173 of them. All lay there through the war. Unread. Minsk was liberated in the summer of 44. Shichukin wrote there, wrote 3 letters. There was no answer. Then he learned Anna died in 43 in the ghetto. The Germans shot her. Katya too. No wife, no daughter, no home. Only memory remained. Shichukin folded the letters back, closed the map case. "Forgive me," he thought. "I did not protect you." After the war, Shichukin returned to Tambov. The city was almost untouched. The front passed to the side. The locomotive depot smoked, as in childhood. It smelled of coal. Shichukin got a job at a factory as an engineer. Peaceful work, drawings, calculations, no shooting. In 48, he married again. Maria Nikolaevna, a paramedic from the factory medical station. In 49, a son was born. They named him Alexei. Life went on its course. Shichukin almost never spoke about the war. If asked, he answered briefly. "I fought, commanded a battery. I reached Berlin. That is all." He did not tell about the buried guns. Why? It was work. Ordinary frontline work. But sometimes, very rarely, letters came. The first came in 47 from an unfamiliar Lieutenant Krasnov. He wrote, "Dear Comrade Major Shukin, Lieutenant Krasnov writes to you, battery commander of the 121st Artillery Regiment. I want to thank you. In the winter of 44, we were issued instructions for equipping camouflaged positions. Your instructions. We applied them near Königsberg.
We stood in position for 2 weeks. The Germans bombed every day. Not a single casualty. Everyone returned alive. Thank you. Shchukin read the letter, folded it, put it away in a desk. Then came a second from Captain Voronov, a third from Senior Sergeant Melnikov, a fourth, a fifth, a 10th. Artillerymen wrote from all over the Union, thanked him, told how they applied the method, how they survived. Shchukin read the letters, answered rarely, did not like to write, but read everything to the last word.
In '56, a book came out. Artillery in the Great Patriotic War, Military Publishing House. Shchukin bought it at a bookstore, brought it home, leafed through it in the evening. On page 112, he found it. Of particular interest is the experience of camouflaging artillery positions developed by Captain G.A. Shchukin in the summer of 1944. The method consisted of placing guns in specially equipped pits with subsequent camouflage with natural ground. Application of this method made it possible to reduce losses of artillery units from enemy aviation by 58 to 62%. The method was included in the official manual and was widely applied until the end of the war. Shchukin read it, closed the book, put it on the shelf. Maria asked, "Is this written about you? About me? And what do you feel?" Shchukin shrugged his shoulders. "Nothing special, I was just doing my job." But at night, when Maria was asleep, he got up, went to the window, looked at the stars, thought about those who did not live to see this, about Grachev, who dreamed of becoming a teacher, about Petrov with his tractor, about Lukin, who was just beginning to live, about the 756, or maybe already thousands or more, those who survived thanks to the idea that came that night in the dugout. Not in vain, he thought. So it was not all in vain. In '64, a delegation of military men came to the factory, a major general of artillery and 2 colonels. The factory director called Shchukin. "Grigory Alexeyevich, you have visitors." Shchukin came out. The major general extended his hand. "Major Shchukin, or rather, Comrade Shchukin. You are already in the reserves?" "Yes, Comrade Major General." "Major General Kuznetsov, head of the Artillery Academy. We are writing a textbook on artillery tactics. We would like to include your experience in it, with your permission." Shchukin nodded. "Of course, Comrade Major General." They talked for an hour. The general asked in detail. One of the colonels wrote it down. When they were leaving, the general said, "You know, Comrade Shchukin, your method is still taught at the academy. Cadets are shown it as an example of unconventional thinking, as an example that in war, not only strength wins, but also the mind." Shchukin remained silent, not knowing what to answer. The general shook his hand. "Thank you for your service, Comrade Shchukin." They left, and Shchukin returned to his blueprints, to peaceful work, to ordinary life. Grigory Alexeyevich Shchukin died in 1972 in Tambov in his apartment. Quietly, in his sleep. His heart stopped. He was 59 years old. 11 people whom the family did not know came to the funeral. Elderly men, former military personnel, with medals on their jackets. Shchukin's son Alexei asked one of them, "Excuse me, who are you?" "How did you know my father?" The man answered, "I commanded a battery in 1944 near Kovel. We were in position. The Germans were bombing. I remembered your father's instruction. We dug in. We held out for 2 weeks. Out of 3 people, not a single casualty. I owe your father my life. All my boys owe him." He paused, then added, "We did not know him personally, but when we learned that he had died, we decided to come and pay our last respects." After the funeral, one of those who came gave Shchukin's son an old photograph. In the photograph was a T-34 tank.
4 artillerymen stood nearby, young and smiling. On the tank's armor was written in chalk, "Thank you, Shchukin." "These are my boys," said the old man. 1945. We took this photo after a battle. We wanted to send it to your father, but did not know his address. And then the war ended. Everyone scattered. "Here, keep it. Let it be a memory." Alexei took the photograph and looked at it for a long time. In the evening, when everyone had left, he asked his mother, "Mother, what did father do in the war? He never talked about it." Maria took a box from the shelf and opened it. Inside were letters, many letters from strangers. "Read," she said. "Everything is written here." Alexei read all night. Letters from artillerymen from all over the Union, dozens of letters, hundreds of names. They all thanked him for the idea, for life, for returning home. By morning, Alexei had finished reading and sat looking out the window. His father had never spoken about this, had lived an ordinary life, worked as an engineer, raised his son, was a quiet, calm person, and behind him were hundreds, perhaps thousands, of saved lives. "Father," thought Alexei, "you are a hero, a real hero."
And you did not even know it. Remember, at the beginning I spoke about 4 guns, about 24 people, about German aviation that searched for the battery for 3 days and did not find it. Now you know this story. Captain Shchukin did not invent anything supernatural. He simply buried the gun in the ground, covered it with turf, and this saved lives. A simple idea, born of desperation, embodied by stubbornness, spread by war. 756 lives, that is only the official statistics for 6 months. How many were there actually until the end of the war? Afterward, when the method was taught in academies and applied in other conflicts, there are no exact figures, but one can assume thousands. Thousands of artillerymen returned home to their wives, to their children, to their parents. Because one captain, on one sleepless night, thought, "What if we dig in?" War is not only tank breakthroughs and assaults on heights. War is also little tricks, simple solutions, ideas that save lives. Grigory Shchukin was an ordinary person, not a genius, not a hero from the movies, just a captain of artillery who did not want to die and did not want his men to die. That was enough. Someday, if you find yourself in the Artillery Museum in St. Petersburg, look for the exhibit about the Great Patriotic War. There is a small plaque there. It reads, "Method of equipping camouflaged artillery positions, developed by Captain G.A. Shchukin, 1944. That is all that remains. A small plaque in a museum and thousands of lives that were saved. The photograph with the inscription, "Thank you, Shchukin," is still kept in the family. It is yellowed with time. The faces of the artillerymen are barely visible, but the inscription is clearly readable. "Thank you, Shchukin." From those who survived, from those who returned, from those who would never have existed if their fathers and grandfathers had not returned from the war. Thank you for not giving up at the darkest moment, for thinking, for inventing, and for saving. This is true heroism. Not loud, not bright, but real.